Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into a foundational 1873 Hindu law case that completely redefined the limits of joint family property. If you're a law student or just fascinated by history, you might have wondered, how do these vast family estates manage to stay intact over centuries? How do legal rights pass down without getting fractured by the sheer passage of time? Well, the answer actually lies right here in Moro Vishwanath v. Ganesh Vithal. It's honestly an absolute masterclass in property law, and we're going to break it down so it's crystal clear for you. Okay, let's map out the mechanics of this complex ruling. We'll follow a clear case brief method. 1. The facts. 2. The legal issue. 3. Rules and statutes. 4. Clash of arguments. 5. Reasoning of the court. And finally, 6. The landmark judgment. Starting off with Section 1, the facts. A dispute over ancestral property. So, picture a massive Hindu joint family that's remained undivided for several generations. Imagine this family tree growing broad and deep over decades, but never actually officially splitting its wealth. The conflict here kicked off when the plaintiffs, these are descendants who were more than 4 degrees removed from the original founder, they demanded their rightful cut of the ancestral pie. But the defendants, who were actively holding the property, straight up refused. Basically, their argument was, look, you're just way too far down the family tree to have any legal claim left. Which leads us to Section 2, the legal issue, tracing the boundary of rights. This brings us to the core dilemma the Bombay High Court had to resolve. Does the right to demand partition in a joint Hindu family actually stop at the 4th degree from the common ancestor? Or can a descendant who's further removed still claim a share, provided the line is unbroken? It's a really fascinating question, right? Legal boundaries versus unbroken family continuity. Moving to Section 3, Rules and Statutes, specifically the Mitakshara School. Now, to understand the court's approach here, we have to look at how property rights are acquired the literal moment a person is born. The big term you absolutely need to know for your studies is coparsonary. See, while a joint family can be huge, the coparsonary is a much narrower, almost exclusive club within it. It's the specific body of individuals who possess an inherent right to the ancestral property by birth. You don't have to wait for someone to write you into a will. The second you take your first breath, boom, you have a legal interest in the property. Traditionally, though, this group is governed by the 4-degree rule. This restricts the coparsonary to the father and his next 3 generations. So let's count. The common ancestor is degree 1, his son is degree 2, the grandson is degree 3, and the great-grandson is degree 4. According to strict ancient texts, the box supposedly stops there. Anyone born at the 5th degree, like a great-great-grandson, traditionally sits right outside this immediate circle of automatic property rights. Let's see how this played out in Section 4, Clash of Legal Arguments, Defendants versus Plaintiffs. Weaponizing this 4-degree rule, the defendants basically clung to a really rigid, static view of the law. They argue that rights strictly cut off from the original founder. Why? Well, they claimed if it didn't, the property would just be fractured into a million worthless pieces over the centuries. Makes sense, right? But the plaintiffs brought in a highly dynamic counterargument. They said, wait a minute, our family has never separated. We are completely joint. Because of that, you don't count 4 degrees from a guy who lived 200 years ago. You count backward from the last person who legally held the property. And that brings us to Section 5, Reasoning of the Court, the fluctuating right. So, the bench clarified that while the limit is indeed 4 degrees, it's absolutely not a static boundary frozen in time. In fact, they explicitly stated that the right to partition is a fluctuating right. I just love that phrasing. It tells us that the law actually breathes and moves with the living family, rather than just being trapped in the past with deceased ancestors. What this means in practice is that as long as each generation is within 4 degrees of the generation immediately preceding it, the chain of the coparsonary survives. The court established that the correct legal anchor isn't that ancient founder at all. The anchor is the last holder of the property. So as long as you can trace a chain of living links generation to generation, that right to the property just keeps flowing downward. This brilliantly illustrates this shifting downward of the coparsonary. Imagine it like this. You've got the ancestor, son, grandson, and great-grandson. That's your original 4, right? Now, when the original ancestor passes away, the great-great-grandson, who was previously stuck on the outside at degree 5, he immediately steps up into the void. He is now only 4 degrees away from the new head of the family, which is the son. The entire coparsonary essentially just shifts down like a sliding window. It's an elegant solution.
The court explained that family jointness acts as a sort of bridge. The descendants only lose their share if the chain is physically broken by the death of 3 consecutive generations before the ancestor dies. Now, this is a really crucial caveat. Let's say the son, grandson, and great-grandson all tragically pass away while the original ancestor is still alive. Well, then the chain snaps. The great-great-grandson is left stranded without a living link, and the property right is lost. But as long as just one intermediate link survives to bridge that gap, the family's jointness preserves the ancestral character of the property forever.
Which leads to Section 6, the landmark judgment. Moro, Vishwanath v. Ganesh, Vithal. All of this detailed logic led directly to a monumental decision. The court ruled for the plaintiffs. By firmly establishing that the rule counts from the last owner, they definitively protected members of long-standing joint families from losing their birthright just because a lot of time had passed. The Bombay High Court recognized that, hey, penalizing a family simply for surviving and staying together for centuries, that would be entirely unjust.